Great. So welcome once again. This is opening or introductory session of yin and yang of risk and resilience. As I said, Anand is MD and CEO at Udbata Technologies, and I'm Daman Dev Sood, your friend facilitator. Quickly about me, about 4 decades in the industry, 2 decades in BCM and resilience. I'm professor of practice with Chitkara University in Himachal. Authored 8 books, 17 copyrights, books and courses together. I'm not going to read all. I have won multiple awards nationally, globally in BCM resilience, into the BCA Hall of Fame. One result is expected tonight, as I recollect, from DRI, Lifetime Achievement, where I'm finalist third time this year. Let's see what happens tonight or tomorrow night. With this, I will hand it over to Anand.
Thank you, Daman. Very good afternoon to all on the call again. Unlike Daman, I've been a practitioner for quite some time. I'm today the founder, CEO of a startup at Hyderabad. We are a risk technologies company. We have our own risk management software. And the last few months, we've been collaborating with Daman as a subject matter expert for PCM and resilience. And that's how we got together. But my area of practice, my area of liking, my domain area of competency has been risk management. And that's how we thought of getting both of this together, the yin and yang of risk and resilience. So that's been the background to the title. A little more about me. My basic background is in finance and risk management. I'm an ex-chief risk officer of a listed NYSE Indian pharma company with more than now 25 years, 5 years in startup, 20 years in industry. Um, I've been able to work practically with every function in the company. I've had hands-on experience on information security, BCM as a practitioner, and with my startup today, which is primarily a software company, I now have exposure to pharma, auto, and IT. I've also spoken on several national and international conferences. But today, the topic is something that is very close to mine and Daman's heart. So I'll continue with the topic, and then please feel free to stop us if you feel it's important, or else we're very happy to take the questions at the end. I leave the choice to you. We've got about 4 participants already in, and more may coming their way. So feel happy to pause me if you feel that there is a need. So with that, I'll get going. Thanks again, Daman, for setting this up. I think it's a great segue to what is going to happen with corporates in the future. So let me start with this one slide which summarizes everything that's happening outside our organizations, right? A lot of us are familiar with this term VUCA, and we've used it, abused it, misused it, whatever. At the same time, we also understand what it means. It's been core to the way we have understood risk. Largely, VUCA is external right? So there's a certain understanding about it. But since COVID started, since say early 2020 or mid 2020, there's this new term that started getting understood and coined, but then understood first and then coined, called bunny. And Daman, if you can just move a little forward. While while VUCA was talking about events that are unfolding, right? It could be a financial crisis, it could be war, eruption, etc. Bunny brought in the fact that our business models are so integrated, so dependent, not just within the company but outside. that it started exposing the brittleness in the way our business models exist. So when we talk about something like VUCA, the way typically organizations were dealing with it is to start making changes, being the first mover, leading by example. Agility was the name of the game. Tech savviness was extremely important. Critical thinking was very important. But the moment we shifted to understanding our own business models being brittle, um, we understand that the topic of resilience, the topic of awareness, the topic of adaptability, intuition, all of these are qualities that are required for organizations to be able to understand how Bunny is going to impact. So that's one big shift. And VUCA is not gone, but Bunny is coming. So you've got VUCA and Bunny rather than VUCA versus Bunny, basically looking at us, right? Move on, Damaji. So I think there are two contexts. One was the context of something like uh, the various emerging risks that we faced, and we all are aware of what the World Economic Forum has been covering for quite some time. Some of us have been following this report every year. It's published in January. And the interesting part about this year's World Economic Forum is it's entirely different from the way the focus areas are mentioned compared to the previous years. If you take the first 5 or 6 risks, they are all being talked about for the first time, or they are at least prioritized as the top 5 or 6 risks for the first time. Very, very interesting. And Damanji, just one word forward.
Yeah.
Last year in 2023, for the first time, World Economics Forum coined this new term called polycrisis. And this came out after Europe started very badly getting hit. Cost prices went up, inflation went up because there was an energy crisis. The energy crisis came in because we had sanctions on energy producing countries like Russia, instilled by Europe, instilled by US. And that happened because of the Ukraine, right? The Russia-Ukraine. So at this point in time, approximately, a year ago, World Economic Forum came out with this term to say that polycrisis now is a term that is going to be prevalent for quite some time, where we see multiple risk events unfolding at the same time. But more importantly, they are interconnected. So one risk event connects to the other. And it becomes very important for both countries and organizations within countries to be able to understand how this interconnectedness is impacting their business models. So if you connect Bunny to what World Economic Forum's report acknowledges now, it becomes very evident that the way forward is not just understanding of risk, which we all traditionally understand. It could be internal or external, but also being able to acknowledge that there can be several risks that companies may not be prepared for. And therefore, the only way of dealing with risks is to enhance your resilience. Ramanji, you can move forward. The last 2-3 quarters that we've worked with firms, we've learned that companies have started talking about risk and resilience in the same breath. Earlier, we used to always have a risk management team talking about enterprise risks, risk registers, etc. And we would have a BCM team or a resilience team focused on supporting organizational resilience, right? And they may be sitting as two different silos or two different sets of people who are thinking. And now management collectively want to look at both to understand across that continent how does risk and resilience interconnect. So this graph that I've kind of here, the figure that is here, is essentially going to talk a little about the relationship between what I call as the risk loss cycle, the relationship between risk and let us say, a crisis leading to a business continuity scenario, uh, and company losing money on a regular basis, right? So all of us understand, this cycle. Naman, if you can just take it one step forward. Yeah. So every company has certain core risk assessing functions. So it could be quality, could be risk management or enterprise risk functions. It could be safety. It could be any of these functions where at an operational level or at a business level, risks are assessed, and those risks are rated, ranked. So you see that the heat map or any other way that you may choose to do quantify methodology, etc. But essentially, risks are assessed, risks are ranked, risks are rated, risks are prioritized, and you have a set of mitigations controls planned for several. There are certain risks where you may not have a mitigation or a control possible because they are externally generated. You don't have any way to prevent their occurrence, but you may have some backup plans or contingency plans to deal with it. But whichever way it is, you are going to have a set of controls. You are going to continue to have a you are going to have a certain set of risks where you might have not identified in time, and the risks have started playing out. Maybe you identified the risks, but the mitigation plans were not adequate, and the inadequateness of the mitigation plan, if I could call that, is something that might, kind of put the company into trouble, and therefore a risk that plays out starts impacting the organization. A simple example could be an operational risk event like a fire event. A major example or a larger scale example could be a pandemic, or even a larger financial credit crisis, that is a financial crisis that's affecting, say, the US banking sector, is then playing down to, let us say, IT companies in India because they are exposed a lot to the BFSI sector. So the impacts could come from anywhere. The impacts, once they start coming, the company could start losing. And that's where the companies get into mitigation mode, damage control mode, response mode. And if they are not able to manage the crisis or withstand the challenge, then they start incurring losses if they're not planned for it. And that's where the whole um, concept of uh, resilience kicks in, responsiveness kicks in. And in a on a on a on a day when all of this has still worked out or succeeded or failed, we still have a situation where, let us say, some of this loss could be made good by insurance, right? So I call this the risk loss cycle. And Daman, if you can just move. This particular figure has two components. Component number one is to tell you that risk management is not just dealt with by one function, but with several functions, right, within the organization. So, like I said, we could have an ERM function, could have an audit function, you could have a legal and compliance function that looks after regulatory risks. You have the EHS function, you have the quality function, you have the BCP, BCM in place for certain organizations where they look at operational risk and resilience. You could have the finance teams looking after credit risk and market risks, financial reporting risks, etc. Right? You have the IT teams looking at infosec and cyber risks, and so many, right? So all of these teams are working towards minimizing the potential impact from risks and therefore the loss getting. Now, if I look at all of this collectively, every organization has two options available or two kinds of windows of decision available. The first is what I call as the risk management. And in the risk management window, essentially, you are able to do everything that is possible to prevent a risk from playing, right? So from the time I formally recognize or understand that there is a risk in place that I need to attend till the time that at risk actually nothing happens, and things are fine, then everything is fine. and I'm working on the mitigation plans. I have some controls in place, blah, blah. But at the point in time when the risk impacts me, till that time, whatever I can do to manage the risk is what basically, the risk management window allows. And the crisis management window kicks in just after the risk has played out. The risk could play out, like I said earlier, because it could be a vulnerability that is not addressed. It could be a risk that was not identified. It could be a mitigation plan that was not adequate. And the company has started incurring loss, right? Or the risk has impacted the company or has started impacting. And that window is what I call as the crisis. Now, for any company which wants to claim that it is doing very good risk management, it should find a way to master both these windows, right? The risk management window or the crisis management window should be extended as much as possible. So when I say extended as much as possible, how much can you stretch the risk management window? Give yourself more time to address the risk before it plays out. And similarly, how well can you set up your um, loss mitigation systems or loss management systems so that your crisis management window can be enhanced as much as. Okay. So these are interchangeable words, Nadeem. Crisis can mean emergency. Crisis can mean, uh, any other synonym that you wish to use. But the idea is that it starts at the point when a risk has failed and some impact is starting to start getting felt by the organization, right? So that part of it is what I think matters. The nomenclature could necessarily be generic in this case, right? It's not specific to crisis or BCM. But the goal here is to be able to master these windows. The goal here is to be able to, sure, the goal here is to be able to stretch the decision windows as much as possible. You would find that, your management, for example, they somehow seem to have the knack of identifying the problem just before it plays out. Many times you would see that management can catch a problem or understand that this problem is going to be something that we should focus on first because it's going to hit us soon. Now, that comes from a bit of experience, a bit of understanding of what are those factors or levers that let you know that there is an imminent risk that is likely to play out, etc. But that's a conversation for another day. But today, I just wanted to introduce this topic. And we will be coming back again and again to this because today the idea is to be able to understand the interplay between risk and resilience or BCM and also how each of this can contribute to one another. The solution lies within this continent, right? Starting from assessing risk to basically managing the entire resilience function or capability of. That's right. Please go ahead. So when I'm looking at stretching the first window, the risk management. Obviously, from the time when you identify the risk till the time the risk might play out, every company would have only as much time as it has, right? So on a good day, nothing goes wrong. On a bad day, something can. So the trick here to expand that window is to go further behind, right? So I go earlier, and then I try to find out, can I start identifying risks before they actually qualify to be on my risk register, right? In other words, can I identify a potential emerging risk or can I anticipate risks having some system in place so that I give myself that additional time? And I think this is where a lot of the risk management efforts today are. I'm going to give a set of examples, but essentially, for people who are looking at this for the first time, there are definitions of emerging risk. There's actually an ISO standard that also tries to define emerging risk. But for the purpose of today's session, we just want to define it as any new or unforeseen risk that hasn't yet been contemplated, which means formally acknowledged by the company. This could be a risk that could be on our radar, but currently it is not. And its potential for harm or loss is not fully known, which means we still can't put our finger on the fact that this is going to hit us, but it is possible that it can. And I've listed here a set of sources for all of you. This is the way companies are actually looking at, identifying emerging risks. For someone who's trying to do this for the first time or setting it up for the first time, there are a certain set of you know opportunities that are easily available. The best is, for example, for external risks, the best is learning from peers, right? So you don't want to learn all of the challenges yourself, but peers who are there ahead of you, who are slightly larger, who are in the same industry, who might have faced some of these challenges ahead of you, they can be your best source of information. And this can happen in two ways. One is every annual report of companies. They have a CEO, president, an MD talking about what is important to the company for the past year and the coming year. What are the challenges they see? How do they plan to tackle it? Right. So in many ways, I think if there's a way for all of us to understand and synthesize what these leaders are saying, and this is straight from the horse's mouth, it's in the public domain, right? This can be an excellent source of emerging. So a lot of companies talked about ESG in the past 3 4 years. A lot of companies have been talking about technology upgradation the last couple of years, right? And all of them have started, kind of coming as we see now. Also, we know that every quarter companies have their annual reports published. I'm talking about listed companies. They have a call, an investor call the same. So some of these calls can be very interesting for some of us to attend. If they are your peers, then it's a great opportunity to join. Or else, if you just wait for a week or two, the transcript of the calls are already available on the company's website. So these can be great sources of understanding what companies are currently going through in terms of stuff that is impacting their performance. This can be a very rich source, and some of the experiences of your peers can be, helping you in identifying that ahead of time, let's say, or you would learn from them and be prepared earlier, right? Apart from this, there is great merit in subscribing to industry specific testing reports. There are a lot of research agencies that have come up now that share reports. I'm happy to share references to some of them. The new space, which is very, very popular in the last 5 10 years, has been the startup space. A lot of industry level disruption is happening, through startups. There are tech startups. There are also core industry startups that are there, and they are making significant, potential disruption from them is significant. They're increasingly getting funded, and some of them can impact the very viability of large companies' business models. Right? We have seen some of this in very small ways through, let's say, EVs and stuff like that. That was talked about for a long time, but today that's the order of the day, right? So companies that were able to make the shift were able to do it very successfully. But some companies who couldn't anticipate that and invest in time and be prepared for it, they've been languishing currently in the market. We see new leaders on the automobile leaderboard today in India compared to what it was earlier. And that's all because of some of these, emerging risk trends that could have been picked up and addressed earlier, right? Apart from this, I always, I've been a fan of reports from Deloitte, reports from McKinsey, and these are clearly, forward-looking, well researched, well thought out, forward-looking publications. And depending on the industry, depending on the area of application, they can vary. Now that's external. Usually, when we talk about emerging risks, we normally mean external. But sometimes it's quite possible that you have something which is within the organization. You've not yet picked up the trends, and that could be something that can hurt you if it is not addressed for long. And there are two or three ways in which you could possibly also look for those. One is what I call as the risk-driven analysis. So every risk would obviously have a bunch of probable root causes, right? So if there's a way for you to analyze your root cause drivers to the risk, then it's very easy to connect those risks and understand. Yes, let us say, for example, lack of discipline is one root cause driver. You would understand that lack of discipline impacts, let's say, in a manufacturing setup, it could impact quality, it could impact safety, it could impact, compliance and regulatory. And you know that that's the common one root cause thread that runs. Of course, the risks can be because of several reasons. That's one root cause driver that is, cutting across. And if you start finding the same root cause drivers and they are increasing in number between two risks or multiple risks, then very clearly those risks are connected, right? And if one risk plays out, then it is quite probable that the other risk would also play. So in a way, you are trying to, get yourself a little more familiar with how risks are connected within your organization. The other very, rich set of sources are your lead and lag indicator tracking. So if this is a company that is very metric driven, that understands that looking at things both from a lead perspective, that focuses or that looks at the probability of something happening, and the lag, which is also equally important to understand how bad things are, right? So lead and lag indicator tracking, as well as looking back and seeing how did risks impact you in the past. Is there a learning? Can we incorporate that learning in our next decision or in our next process? I think these are some stuff that very clearly uh, would be important, right, for us to look at. And these are great sources of potential emerging risk. So I have just talked a little about stretching the the left side of that figure, right, to see how we could extend the risk management window. Because if you're giving yourself a little more time by identifying risks a little ahead of what it can happen, then that's probably a good thing for you, right? You're able to then stretch your uh, risk management issue. So now I will hand it over to Daman for him to talk a little about the right side of that figure, and hopefully we will be able to then see the overall connectivity. So over to you, Daman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anand. And then for the benefit of everyone, your attention back once again to this figure. What I would like to comment is, Anand, this is an excellent diagram that you have come out with. And I'm attempting to fix the video as well. Give me a few seconds. While we know this concept for long, for decades perhaps, but the way this diagram tells the story, I haven't seen it that way. I will suggest that you get an IP on this, please. So focus on this maroon box once again, please. This is where losses have started occurring or incurring for the organization. So any organization would like to keep this box as small as possible. This is the BCM window, business continuity management window. There is no one size fits all that we have been saying. That statement goes right with BCM also. Your plan, your arrangements can be different from my plan, my arrangements, even if we are in the same industry sector and even if we are almost of the same size. What is this right size? As I said, any organization would like to keep this as small as possible because losses are occurring. The business most likely has stopped. There is a structured way of doing this, which is known the famous BIA, Business Impact Analysis, helps us to right size this for us. No one knows the right values. When we start talking of parameters, those parameters in the BCM world are RTO, RPO, MBCO, etc. No one knows the right values. These are estimates, and that's what we say. Estimate your RTO, please. Estimate your RPO, please. So right sizing this box is done through business impact analysis, and that's why BIA is said to be the backbone of BCM. Your BCM will be good if your BIA is good, or your BCM will be as good as your BIA. In the past, we have been questioned or challenged that it seems its new name for risk, BCM and risk are same, similar. We have attempted to say these are not. So I say this is natural progression from risk to BCM. The journey, according to me, is 6-7 steps, which I'll attempt to show on this slide. Wherever a risk stops or stopped, BCM picks over from there and continues beyond that. Or risk smoothly hands over the baton to BCM and BCM continues with the journey. So any company most likely would like to or should or must start with risk management in whichever form. It may be very strong, structured, formal, or it may be ad hoc also. But risk management is the starting point from which little maturity, and we would talk about enterprise risk management or ERM, and going up to GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. So slowly the focus is increasing or the scope is increasing, and we reach to business continuity management. A point of caution, word of caution is that this is not either or. This is and. That we started GRC, so we give up risk management or enterprise risk management is not right. Without that, we would be weak on GRC. From BCM, and then the same question was about in last 3 years or so, oh, it's another or yet another name. Now we call it operational resilience. Today, the focus is not to differentiate between these two, but these two are once again different. And it's once again not either or. That we have started operational resilience, so we give up business continuity management. Actually, if we say the need is operational resilience, the mean is through BCM. BCM is one of the most important pillars. So it's once again and. So from BCM, we move on to operational resilience to achieve operational excellence or to achieve excellence in our operations and someday to achieve full resilience when we start calling ourselves a resilient organization. Organizational resilience, there is an ISO standard also, ISO 22316. So this is the natural progression, according to me, from left to right. And again, I would like to say that most likely no one is going to start from a zero or is starting from a zero. There are some elements of resilience. At the same time, no one will ever be 100% resilient because no one is perfect in this world. There is always improvement possible. Some improvements can be made, and all the management systems, 6-7 steps shown here, but we know there are so many management systems in the world, in the organization. Every management system, every domain talks about continual improvement. So it's a journey of transformation, I would like to say. Quickly, because BCM is main pillar, so I'm spending time on BCM. This diagram, which in the past we would have said to be BCM life cycle, BCI today, starting end of last year, November last year onwards, has started calling it BCMS, Business Continuity Management System. So they have dropped the term life cycle. Steps generally are same, names may be different. The structure is same. So I'm going fast on this portion because I want to spend a little more time on something what is new. So this is my representation. We might have seen this life cycle or BCMS in some other different colors, shapes, and formats. Starting from top, we'll go clockwise. So a program needs to be started, manual needs to be written, and policy needs to be written. That's one of the first requirements or steps. Policy shows the intent and commitment of the top management. We move on to business impact analysis and risk assessment to understand, establish the requirements of business continuity, right sizing that burgundy or brown or whatever color you were able to see on your screen based on the resolution. Right sizing that box is done through business impact analysis, risk. Anand spent a lot of time on, and then we go on to designing the solutions or strategies. So if I need to have a solution, I must have a problem in hand, and the problem in hand is the previous step, that there is a possibility of we going down. The process comes down, the organization comes down due to some reason. So we start looking at the continuity. So output of BIA and RA then goes into designing strategies, which means our solutions, strategies, whether we call it continuity strategies or recovery strategies, must be according to our requirements, according to our RTO, RPO, MBCU, etc., which then need to be implemented through plan or plans. Business continuity plan is our focus, but there are some associated plans also, which may be emergency, incident, ITDR, specifically cybersecurity. Plan is ready. Very good situation for any organization, but it's not good enough yet because the plan has not been tested or the arrangements have not been tested. That's why we come to validation portion where we conduct tests, exercises, reviews, and audits. An internal audit is mandatory. External audit or certification is not. That's your choice. And we look at continual improvement. The inputs for continual improvement mainly come from the previous stage, which is validation, but anyone at any point in time provide inputs for improvements. The last step, which not necessarily is the last, just to complete the cycle, I have put it there, embedding BCM into organization's culture. In other words, the day when we start saying that it's in our blood, the BCM, the moment we think of B, the business, we think the B, business continuity management. Then we start calling it's embedded or claiming. The day not only top management, not only senior management, not only people like us, but the clerk, the receptionist, the janitor, the guard, the lift operator also speak BCM in their own language, in their own way, not necessarily the official definitions, but that they also are aware of this is the day when we'll claim that it's embedded. And this is the cycle which will have to continue. BCM is a program. This is something new that perhaps no one else has done that. The operational resilience implementation cycle, and I will admit that influenced by the approach that Bank of England has recommended or is expecting. So once again, this is also a program. So we'll start from the top and we'll go clockwise, initiate the program, write manual, policy, etc., etc. Second very important step is to identify important business services. There is some concept around that. What is important business service? There are differences between BCM and operational resilience. Some other day we will talk about those, but it's not either or, it's and. Then set the impact tolerances, similar to what we would say in BCM, RTO, RPO, etc. This fourth step, which is mapping, is very important, and the term used is end-to-end mapping, which perhaps we were not paying enough attention to. Even if businesses have been running for 30, 40 years, people do not understand full dependencies. How is this process happening in the company? It has been happening, that's for sure. So that's why this mapping or end-to-end mapping is required, where we look at dependencies also. How is an activity happening in the organization? And then we need to develop plans. So business continuity plan for the important business service. So again, little difference from the BC plan that we already had in place. A lot of focus in operational resilience, specifically as is admitted, influenced by the way Bank of England says, or even Central Bank of Ireland says, a lot of focus on ITDR and cybersecurity. We can understand reasons easily that a lot has been happening in the last few years, including going up to ransomware attacks. So that may be the reason. We need to be managing risk. So risk management doesn't go out of operational resilience. We need to look at third party. So the term that we have been using, third party risk management, during BCM, during VIA also, we would have looked at dependencies, our vendors and partners, but the expectation now is to go deep, take it more seriously, pay more attention to this, even going up to fourth, fifth, sixth parties, because our supply chains are very long, deep, and complex. If my decision, my business, sorry, is dependent on a supplier vendor, I need to look at their business continuity management also, or their operational resilience also. So a lot of focus on third-party risk management. We need to be conducting tests, and the expectation is rare but plausible scenarios to be tested. So again, a lot more focus on test in operational resilience, and we need to assess vulnerabilities, internal, external, our own or our vendors, suppliers, third parties, embedding operational resilience once again into organization's culture, which will happen through training and awareness. A lot needs to be done, and everyone plays role in operational resilience. Everyone is responsible for operational resilience, so everyone needs to be involved. The degree of involvement will vary, will be different. For BCM, there is ISO 22301 global, and some other countries have their own standards also. So for ISO 22301 or through ISO 22301, a certification is achievable, possible, but currently there is no standard about operational resilience. There may be guidelines, etc. So a self-assessment is good, which I could do for BCM also. I am saying I am good, bad, or ugly. So similarly, I should do my self-assessment for operational resilience also, and then continual improvement. So this is how I'm claiming this perhaps is the first time someone has attempted to put operational resilience implementation life cycle into picture. These are about 12 steps according to me in this. This is where I would like to stop. But before we go on to the question answer session, we have time for that. We have scheduled, we have planned time for that. As we said in the beginning, this is an 8-part series that we have attempted. Odbata and DVD, training and consultancy, Anand and myself. We have set the topics for next 7 weeks also. The day, time fixed, it's going to be Wednesday, 1:30 p.m. IST, and the topics. So next week, we have a role of force majeure clause and BCM, followed by AI implications on organizations' risk and resilience decisions. In week 4, we touch upon the art of designing, developing, and delivering a resiliency test. Week 5 will be discussion around sustainability and risk interconnectedness. Week 6 will be opportunities to integrate risk and BCM. This is an expectation that is coming from the management, from the organizations, to integrate risk and resilience through BCM. So we'll talk about that. And the second last week of the series will be resilience maturity model and assessment tool. Quick discussion, demonstration around that. And the final week, we two will sit together discussing navigating careers in risk and resilience. So we request, please attempt to attend these sessions, raise questions. You can raise in advance and we'll attempt to cover during the session. This is where we would like to stop. Thank you very much once again. But we would like to, now I'll stop sharing the screen so that we can see each other. Switch on cameras if you wish. Speak directly, unmute yourself if you wish. Nadeem was raising hand. Yes, Nadeem, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I would request first, thank you very much. Absolute revitalizer. Nobody could have said so much in such a short time better than this. But knowing me, the obsessive compulsive part in me is coming to play, Daman. So forgive me if I sound a little awkward. Kindly show this slide where you had that circular process of 12 phases.
Okay.
Uh, for the knowledge of everyone, I'm a student of Daman for last 6 years. Uh, we meet quite often. We work together on different projects. I keep annoying him by my stupid questions because everybody tells, "Oh, this I was told to you last time. You're again coming up." Daman,
I'm happy with
allow me
those
to
questions. Yes, please.
allow me to say why assess vulnerabilities, which is number 9, does
Yes.
not come back after 4 before we develop the plans. This is the first part. Okay, then we have done the evaluation of third parties, etc. Probably evaluation of third parties perhaps could also be after 4-9, because once we are assessing vulnerabilities of the organization, the system, the facility, and the processes, third party probably could be there. So that's one part. And once we say number 10, why isn't that one after managing the risks?
Okay. Good, good.
So sorry
Thank
if
you.
my questions are a bit confusing.
It's confusing. Yes, thank you very much. Right. So I'll say this is my representation, admittance. It's not in any book yet. I would say it would be in my book. Right. Also, it is influenced by the way Bank of England expects. We can do differently. Yes, we can do differently. I can give little logic. As a whole, someone could say BCM is risk management. As a whole, someone could say operational resilience is risk management. So we will not debate around that because that person is right in saying so. Right? So we need to find risk. When we see TPRM, that is also a risk management. So whether it is before 6 or after 6, we can debate, but it needs to be done. That's one way of saying. Expectation or understanding is that once you have the plans and elements in place, after that you will conduct tests. And a test tells you what are the vulnerabilities. This is how number 9 is after number 8. But at the same time, when I would produce my vulnerability assessment report, when I submit that this is what Nadeem, the CEO, please look into the report we have come out with. That will be an amalgamation of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 all put together. But main expectation that from test we will find the vulnerabilities. That's why it is like that. With respect to number 10, which is embedding, and I'm saying just because I wanted to complete the circle, I attempted to do it that way, right? But at each step, embedding happens. And that in BCM's life cycle also, or in BCMS also, the moment we write policy, which is almost step 1, and we publish, policy is not to be written only just for writing. It needs to be published. It's a mean of communication. Awareness has started there itself. The moment we say conduct BIA, most likely we need to tell people this is how to conduct BIA, or this is our way of conducting BIA. This is our methodology and our template. That means training and awareness is happening there also. Actually, even in test, training and awareness happens. So embedding actually happens at all steps. I will agree with you. It's just to complete the cycle and put it there in both the cycles. I hope I made some sense.
Oh, sir, absolutely. Please don't take me wrong.
No, no. Your
This is a
questions are
learner's
good.
dilemma. We keep looking at things in a different way. So thank you
Yes,
very much. Great
thank you.
explanation. And I must say that Anand's slide, the one that he shown, uh, amazing. Absolutely great. Thank you for the session.
So Anand, you have to now. I had been saying this for last 2 months or 3 months. But now there's another, and Nadeem is very senior expert, experienced person. So he also says so, and I agree with him. Yes,
Thanks, Nadeem.
highly
Thanks.
simplified and highly sense-making diagram. Any more questions? Let me check the chat box also if anything has come in. Mohan, Sainath, Krishnan, please feel free to switch on cameras, which my request is to take a photograph also, but unmute yourself and ask questions directly rather than typing.
Well, no question from my side, but looking forward to the other sessions. This session did reinforce a lot of sound principles related to risk resilience and business continuity. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you very much. Mohan, Sainath, any comments or questions, please? In the
No, sir,
meanwhile,
I
give
think
me,
no question
yes,
from my
please.
side also.
Great. Give me your best
Thank you,
smiles,
sir.
please. I'll take a picture first, and then we'll continue with our discussions. And here I go. Thank you very much. Any other questions? And then I'll put a question to you, which is not a question, but it's perhaps a statement or experience that I'm sharing. Having gone across companies, countries, industries in different roles, and specifically wearing that auditor's hat. Even in established organizations with established BCM, which means established risk also, because risk almost 100% times would have started before BCM in any organization. The observation was, I'm not saying finding, I'm not saying NC major or minor, but an observation that the risk register and risk methodology are out of sync. That if I ask methodology, that methodology is not available. People have been doing it, but there is no methodology written. And third one, that a risk champion actually has never gone through a formal risk training. So, as I said, it's not a question, but a situation or observation. So your comments, I would like to see, or implications of such things happening in the organization.
Yeah, I think if this statement was made about 10 years ago, I would have totally agreed that these things are plausible. But I would say that in the last decade or so, and I'm primarily now talking about Indian companies, not Western organizations, where risk management has taken more a governance compliance position rather than a pure play, let's protect the bottom line or let's try to optimize, bottom line, top line kind of approach. I think that in the past decade, uh, professionals have consciously chosen risk management as careers. Some of us are happy with the choices we made. I myself moved from finance to risk management about close to 20 years now, right ago. 5 years in the startup mode, developing risk management software, and maybe 13 years prior to that as a practitioner. Right? And I think that I couldn't be happier with the choice I made in terms of career. And the space has expanded so much. The science around risk management has got a lot more easy. So when people use the terms of risk management, whether it is something like appetite, whether it is something like a risk register, whether it is something like a risk response strategy, it's the same across the world, not just within India. So the science of risk management has definitely expanded. And that has happened with the other disciplines too. I mean, historically, like you said, while risk management may have preceded BCM, audit would have preceded risk management, compliance would have preceded audit, right? Because the first thing that companies would need to do or want to do is be compliant.
Yeah.
And that is all the risk management that the companies probably do, right? And then they move towards looking at traditional risk managements that are pushed by regulations like internal audit. Every company needs to have an internal audit function, reporting independently to the board, etc., etc. So that's how the risk management, I would say, sophistication journey starts. And
Good.
within, what is now called as ERM, the jargon of ERM, things are getting even more sophisticated. People are moving away from ratings-based view of risks to quantification of risks, etc. And they're doing this not just in the financial sector, even in the non-financial sector. So definitely, it's taken a big change, and people are taking it seriously. But where it is failing, or where things are actually not working out, is that each of these disciplines have now become, I would say, siloed authorities, right?
Right.
So if I have to talk to a BCM professional, and let's say I'm a risk management professional, it's very difficult for me to get across to the other side,
Right.
of my own organization. And people are scared, they're holding on to their information. Just imagine, that let's take a, like I've been part of a pharma company. So let's take all the possible risk disciplines in a pharma company. So I
Right.
have a separate quality team, I have a separate safety team, I have a separate internal audit team. I have a separate NYSE SOX team, I have a separate IFC team. I have a customer audit going on for my manufacturing plants. I have ERM doing its stuff. So
Right.
I am at least looking at 10 or 12 risk disciplines directly or indirectly.
Right.
Now, each of them have some version of their risk register. Each
Exactly.
of them have something, right? But nobody shares it with the other. They don't do it. Imagine a day when those silos are broken and those databases are shared. It's a very powerful day for that company, right? And that is something that is beginning to happen now, because companies are realizing, even if I have 10 very powerful, assurance functions, it still doesn't guarantee that all my risks are taken care.
Right.
So people have started collaborating. People have started what is called as integrated assurance or federated assurance approaches. I will stop here. I know there was a hand up, and possibly people are, maybe they have another question to ask or something. Very happy to continue this chat, but that's the way I look at it. If we are able to crack the silos, then we will move fast.
Thank you very much, Anand. And I was raising hand because of time. We just are at the end time. There was a question in the chat box by Nadeem. Would you cover intrinsic to an organization risks in a different slide, which we should admit that we will attempt to cover in the next sessions. Most likely
So could
it's
you just
lunchtime. People perhaps have taken time out of their lunchtime, so we should respect that. Yes, you had some point. Yes, please.
yeah, just wanted to get a little bit of a detail on what was expected there, and I can get back to you next week. So are you looking at it at an industry level, Nadeem, or are you looking at it at, so what would you have wanted to know there? When you
Okay,
say
so
go down.
once we do the BIA or we set up the umbrella of risk management, quite often people look things which are external.
Right.
They tend not to, or they are kind of enforced to forget about the obsessive growth patterns that the organization have adopted, the territorial distances, the culture, that communication weaknesses. And to be honest, external risks, everyone can see coming, but what people do not have an eye or tolerance to is the internal crap, which makes
Right.
the organization weak when it is to be tested against an external risk, if that makes half a sense.
No, it does. It does. And there is an entire book written called The Grey Rhino around it. So definitely it's worth a read. And just like we've all, been recommended Black Swan, we should also read The Grey Rhino, right? So both of them are on the other ends of the spectrum. One stuff that we really don't even anticipate can happen. And the other is possibly something we are sitting on, but we don't realize we're sitting. So definitely I'll try and see if there can be an indirect, way to address those challenges. But we need to definitely dig deeper within the organization. People say external risk you can't do anything about. Let's at least prevent what is in our control first. and deliver to the bottom line, right? Because bottom line delivery is all downside risk, which most of us can see and potentially stop. So I'll talk a little about that maybe during the course of these 8 sessions, if not the next one. But for sure, we will cover that. Thanks
Thank you.
for asking.
Daman Sab has said that lunch break, so next week onwards, at least we'll be fasting. So we don't have lunch breaks. So I don't know if I miss one of the sessions. Are there recordings, Daman Sab?
Yes, recording will be
Okay.
up.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great.
Great session, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, all of you, first of all, the participants, because even if we arrange, it wouldn't be successful without you. Thanks to Anand for sparing time for this session and committing for 7 more. You all need not register again. You have registered once, and the same link will continue for next 7 weeks also. Same day, same time. We look forward to seeing you again. If you have any questions in advance, please feel free to write to us so that we take time, especially to cover those questions also during these sessions.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Daman. Thanks, Anand. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Thank you
day.
all for joining.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.